Hi, as you can see, my mark's filled in. Because today we're going to be fucking graduating from the House of Night, right? This is the last set of 4 books that I am going to talk about, and then we only have one more video where I talk about my final thoughts and the series as a whole, and then we're done with the entire goddamn thing. Oh god, I cannot wait. The first video was posted 8 months ago, which is ages when you consider the fact that I had to finish the series before starting to make the videos and the scripts and whatnot. It's been an endeavour for quite a while, and so I'm ready to get it done with. Quick note before we begin getting back into the book. I thought it would be pertinent to mention, because I know I made a big deal out of Stevie Ray's boyfriend Reffian being a bird. The bestial implications of that. I thought you might like to know that when Nick showed up to give him forgiveness, she made it so that he's a bird during the day and a regular guy at night. So it's not so weird that he and Stevie Ray are together now. So that's nice for them too, I guess. I just thought it'd be nice for you to know that there's less bestiality in these books than you might have thought. It's not completely devoid of bestiality, which is, something that we'll get into. We are going to be talking about Hidden. If you remember, we left off with Neferet ordering Aurochs to go and kill Reffian, and he accidentally kills Dragon instead, because Dragon is defending Reffian in his final act of, forgiveness before he disappears from the series entirely. There's a little bit of a flashback at the beginning of this book where we find out that in order to make sure that Aurochs definitely killed someone, Neferet had to make a sacrifice to Darkness, who she's fully allied with now, and the sacrifice she chose was Dragon's familiar pet cats, which is apt because Dragon is the one who ended up dying. So Neferet kills this cat, sets the stable on fire, and dips to go and lie to the humans about it. Out to the humans, and she tells them that all the vampires are like staging a coup where they're gonna overthrow the humans and like enslave them, and she's the only good vampire left who's on their side. It's kind of a ploy on her part to get them on her side so that it's easier for her to enslave them later, right? This is what I assume, because it never actually goes anywhere. It's kind of at this point that there was so little going on in each book that was like relevant to the overall plot that I've just started writing 1 or 2 sentences at the beginning of my notes and then going into some details about stuff later. A lot of the book at this point is just us going back and forth, recapping information to each other, finding out each other's opinions that we've already found out through the different POVs that we get. It's just a lot of filler, okay? And I'm not happy about it. Neferet moves into the penthouse apartment of this hotel. She kidnaps Zoe's grandma and keeps her in a cage, but she can't really do anything to her because grandma's got all these turquoise bracelets on, which stop the darkness tendrils from being able to get to her. The book kind of revolves around the guys trying to make a plan to save grandma, and it involves Aurochs. Aurochs is now getting a redemption arc as well, even though he's only just killed Dragon. But it's kind of because he's got these 2 warring sides of him on the inside, right? And he's basically told everybody that he wants to try and let the good side win. He's giving him the chance to do that by letting him come and try and rescue grandma. And he does do this. He like rescues grandma, and he also gores Neferet with his horns that he's got, because, oh yeah, by the way, Aurochs turns into a bull when he's angry. I don't know whether I forgot to mention that. He gets really angry and like charges Neferet off the balcony of her hotel room. I don't know, maybe she's dead. It's kind of the end of the book. In this book, we get the continuation of the twins having their sort of breakup, and it's really not impactful at all. I said before the twins were interchangeable before this point where they split about the absent father debate that everyone's having about Kelowna. The fights get more serious in this book, but none of it really adds anything to either of their characters. Supposed to be a message here about maybe growing up and growing apart from the people who you used to be similar to when you were younger, but it falls really flat. Much as these characters are like disagreeing on the page, they're still pretty much just interchangeable. Erin goes out and starts acting really evil just for no reason. Just because she's not friends with Shawnee anymore, it suddenly means that she's completely on the bad side, and she like goes and joins the bad red fledglings. and it just doesn't make any sense. There's literally no reason for her to be doing that, and I don't understand it. Kelowna is still getting scenes despite him, you know, being the worst immortal antagonist of all time and undeserving of the redemption arc that I know he is destined for, and that is unfortunately not fucking over yet. I'm pretty sure this is the point where his brother starts showing up, and the big reveal is that his brother is Erebus, who was supposedly Nyx's consort. The hints in the narrative are that, like, Kelowna and Erebus and Nyx had this love triangle going on. Kelowna betrayed Nyx somehow, and Nyx, like, banished him from the underworld until he could learn his lesson, and that's how come he ended up, like, going down to Earth and, you know, R-wording a load of Cherokee women. So he really learned his lesson. Basically, him and Erebus are just having all these, like, stupid, like, male ego fueled arguments. The books could be spent on much better and more exciting things, but they won't be, because the cast can't think of them. This book, everybody has got, like, a weird obsession with Damien moving on from the death of his boyfriend Jack. Happened, you know, a couple of books ago, but if you remember, the pacing of these books is fucked, so it's probably only been like 2 weeks since they burned him on a funeral pyre. And everybody's just weirdly obsessed with Damien talking to this news anchor guy who's way too old for him anyway, and getting over the death of Jack and moving on. This on its own would be weird enough, but when you combine it with the fact that throughout the course of the series, everyone has been using their powers to heal grief and to, like, stop themselves from feeling negative emotions. So Zoe will go and, like, infect them with the power of spirit so that they can't feel their grief or their sadness anymore. Or, like, a really unhealthy way of dealing with things. Like, you need to feel those emotions and you need to go through grief in order to healthily get over it, you know what I mean? It shows us this whole thing about Damien moving on. It shows us the attitude that the casts have towards grief more than anything, I think, and it is a really unhealthy one, and just another unhealthy attitude to add to the pile that they're teaching to young people. Just bury your grief under the carpets and hope that the fucking divine powers of the goddess will wash it away or some shit, I don't know. We're treated to some of Eric's inner monologue in this book, and it fucking sucks. I've complained so much about Eric over the course of these reviews, but my god, if there was ever a character that was done dirty in this book, it's Eric Knight. Started as such, like, an upstanding guy, and he seemed like pretty respectful of Zoe and stuff, and then obviously he did a complete 180 of character and started calling her a slut and a whore out of nowhere, acting like a jealous dick and not a very nice feminist guy. Now in his inner monologue, he's, like, really shallow, and he's thinking about, like, girls' tits when they're in mortal danger and shit like that. It's just yet more defamation of this character who did nothing wrong other than slight your main character vaguely by holding her responsible for her own fucking actions. Somebody put Zoe Redbird in jail, please. I need justice for Eric. I need justice for all of the characters in this book who had to come into contact with Zoe Redbird, okay? Next book we are going to be talking about is another novella, and that is Neferet's Curse. So I actually liked Neferet's Curse. Like I've said before, I think that Cass should stick to writing period stuff. I think it just suits her better, and this stilted, like, dialogue that she sometimes has is obviously a little better put into a context where people did kind of speak in this more grammatically correct way. Definitely her avoiding teen speak is a good idea, because boy am I sick of that. I also like the fact that Neferet's Curse is told in a diary format. Neferet, before she became a vampire or a fledgling, and she lived with her father, and her mother died, and the two of them entered into a weird and complicated relationship that ended in him assaulting her right before she started to make the change. She has told Zoe about this backstory before, back when we thought she was a good character, but obviously something so horrific we would be naturally curious about, and as she became our villain, her backstory has become more and more important. And so I do think that this was a necessary novella in the fact that, you know, it goes into exploring Neferet's past and why she might feel towards men the way that she does, because the man that she, you know, should have been able to trust over all others, her father, betrayed her in such a horrible and disgusting way. I think it's interesting that we got some closure on Neferet's backstory. This sympathy that I gained toward Neferet from reading this, and also the absolute batshit crazy journey her character goes on in the next couple of books, made me like her exponentially more than Zoe. It was counterproductive to what the casts wanted to do, okay? And we're going to talk about the way that the casts talk about Neferet and her backstory at another point. But for now, just know that that has been explored here in this novella. The dad character is like a good villain. He's not cartoonish like the villains in the other novellas have been, where they're just these over-the-top, pervy, creepy guys. I think the way that he's written and the way that he's handled is actually done really well in a kind of like subtle way. And you can see the madness and the perversion slowly kind of creep into him, and it's a horrible thing to witness and to understand. It goes to show that like this is the reason why Cast has had these books published, right? Because she has proven time and again that she is a competent writer to a certain extent, and she can write good stuff. But it's just not the House of Night series, unfortunately. I think we just need to pack it in with that shit. Once again, just want to point out that this story does not establish any more vampire lore or answer any of the questions that are burning in our minds about this series. It does just provide us with Neferet's backstory, which is appreciated. And yet, the next book we will be talking about is Revealed. The plot of Revealed is Neferet, who has like become insubstantial, tries to manifest herself inside the grounds of the House of Night, and she's not quite successful, and her like energy passes through Erin and kills her. It like makes her reject the change. Neferet does eventually manifest. She ends up draining all of the blood out of Aphrodite's dad, and then like she just dips again. She just keeps causing major shit at the House of Night and dipping. Police are called and Aphrodite's mum is kicking off saying a vampire's killed her husband, and everybody gets locked down at the House of Night, okay? This is the bit where Dallas, the guy who Stevie Ray was dating, tries to kill her. He's like got in with the nasty red fledglings. They like trap her up on a roof because the red fledglings burn up in direct sunlight. Like it's not just uncomfortable for them like it is with normal fledglings. So they full on try to kill her just for basically cheating on Dallas and because she's like mega talented and powerful. Then Thanatos, who's kind of taken over at the House of Night as like the high priestess, just executes Dallas and the guys who were working with him in the middle of campus. And we have just strayed so far from this being about a vampire high school that we're now beheading kids in the middle of campus, guys. It's fucking insane over here right now. When we were in the Isle of Skye, Zoe met this like other powerful high priestess woman, and she gave Zoe this thing called a seer stone, which is like imbued with old magic. Again, Zoe's kind of in her villain arc here because the seer stone is like making her connect with all this old magic and all this power inside her. She doesn't know what to do with it, and it's exiting her in like her being really narky to everyone, using her powers to like push people over when they're arguing with each other and make her voice louder to get people's attention, just basically being a bit of a bully. This is supposed to be more of Zoe kind of flirting with being a villain, but Zoe has always been irritable and has always used her powers to get what she wants and to control her friends and to kind of bully them a little bit. This just isn't any deviation from the norm, and for like someone who's read the entire series will not feel like the seer stone is influencing Zoe whatsoever. It'll just feel like Zoe's regular behavior because Zoe's a fucking bitch. Anyway, Zoe ends up drinking Aurochs's blood because there's been this whole like kind of romance going on between them, and he kind of seduces her into it. Shaylin, the girl with the true sight, sees it and tells Aphrodite. Zoe gets really mad at them and like storms off. She goes to the park and these two guys come over and they're kind of hassling her and asking her for like change or something. I think they're like two homeless guys, to be honest. And Zoe just like uses her powers to smack them into a wall. Later on we find out that the guys are fucking dead. And for some reason this time it's a big deal. I don't know whether you remember this, but like way back in the second or third book, Zoe like also killed two guys by throwing them in front of a truck. And that just never got mentioned again. Like it was like, oh Zoe, don't be mean like that. Like it was never acknowledged that she straight up killed those two dudes, okay? Now for some reason it's a big deal that Zoe has killed the dude. We'll get into that in a minute though. We're treated in this book to a little bit more of Neferet's backstory after she became a vampire fledgling. The way that as her powers began to develop, she began to use them for evil instead of good, and how that began with the murder of her father, which yeah, she did by the way, after she became a vampire fledgling, she went back and killed her dad, which, I mean, good for her. It's the best bit of the book, but it ultimately raises more questions about the red fledglings, because we get a little bit of the backstory about Neferet learning how to like resurrect them, with it being, you know, directly confirmed that Neferet has been the one to activate these fledglings or whatever. It's weird that now Shaylin has been marked by Nyx as a red fledgling. And again, there's never an explanation for that as far as I can tell in the books. I've Googled this. I went out there to see if anybody could explain to me what the red fledglings were all about. And I just don't know. There's not an answer out there. Sorry if that's what anybody was coming here for, because I ain't fucking got it. I ain't got it. And I don't think anybody else has got it either. Also, I thought I should just mention at the end of this book, Neferet kills a church full of people. The things that she is doing make absolutely no goddamn sense, but they are kind of a lot of fun. And considering she's been going about through the entire series doing absolutely nothing, I just appreciate the fact that she's going out there and having fun. In the last book, there's this big thing where she's got all of the people in the hotel and she's making them put on like shows for her and dance like old-timey like jesters in the court and stuff, and she's the queen. It's completely pointless and it's completely stupid, right? But it's so much fun. Neferet was almost a good villain in the end here. Some points in this story, they decide to obviously move the red fledglings into the basement so that they're out the direct sunlight while we are under police observation. In the basement, they discover a pile of dragons' old swords that are all jewel encrusted and worth a lot of money. And so he's just like, ooh, we can sell these to do like something with. And everybody just agrees with her and is like, yeah, let's do that. And it's like, those aren't fucking yours. Like, just because Dragon's dead now, like, I'm pretty sure they belong to the school, or like they should go to a fucking museum. You can't just take those and sell them to buy your fucking little handbags and sunglasses or whatever the fuck you're after, okay? The entitlement of that scene just got to me. It just speaks to Zoe's entire character that she comes across this basement full of treasures of this guy who's just died, and she goes, I can use these for myself. I don't know how much I've talked about Zoe's tattoos in these reviews, but basically I remember I told you that she had a filled in mark at the beginning of the series, which you're not supposed to have unless you're a fully fledged vampire. Over the course of the series, as Zoe goes about completing honourable acts according to Nyx, she starts to get more and more tattoos in places that no vampire has ever gotten tattoos before, like on her back, on the palms of her hands. These tattoos are described in like a lot of ways over the course of the series, and it's really inconsistent. Like, sometimes there's swirls, sometimes it's like filigree, sometimes it says that there's birds and shit in there, sometimes it says that there's words, and I just want a little bit of consistency about fucking something. Like, just anything at this point would be good. Like, I'd be happy. Just, they barely describe anything, okay? Except for what the characters are wearing, which I could not give a shit about. You could at least give us a little bit of description about these tattoos that are such a fucking integral part of your fucking plot, and make the main character such a special girl, which is clearly what you think we're all focusing on. This book contains the best scene in the entire series, and what almost made it worth it reading up to this point. Almost, not quite. Aurochs, who's obviously the guy with Heath's soul in, gets drunk and finds these two human guys spying through the wall at the vampire girls, and they're like, we're trying to see some vampire pussy. Aurochs goes to report these guys to Stark and Zoe, and keeps repeating the words vampire pussy, and it is honestly one of the most hilarious things I've ever read. I don't know whether I was delirious from reading so much of these books at this point, but it really did genuinely make me laugh. Zoe tries to come and tell the guys off with him, and Aurochs is like, no, you can't come, you have legs and tits. And I'm like, the patriarchy. So yeah, that was actually a genuinely good moment and a good experience that I had while reading these books, which is, they were few and far between. Immediately following that, something that really, really boiled my piss was the fact that Stark said that he wanted to watch The Big Bang Theory and relax, which is fine, Stark, you can watch whatever you want. It's not my place to judge you for what you take pleasure in. However, Zoe follows this up by asking him not to laugh at her when she doesn't understand all the jokes, as if The Big Bang Theory is this complex show that you have to be really smart to understand. I just hate this. I hate everything about this. We've got some more lesbian vampires. As much as you might think that I would be happy about this, I'm not, because I feel like they're just doing it for fan service at this point. First example of actual lesbian vampires that we have had in the main series and not in a novella, and it's this relationship that happens completely in the background. The two characters have completely no chemistry and no scenes together beforehand, and then we're all just supposed to accept this relationship, and we never see any development of it apart from the fact that they're always together and now they call each other babe. And it's Shaylin and Nicole, by the way, but like, who actually gives a shit? Like, you only know who Shaylin is from the last couple of like books, and I've never mentioned Nicole in my life, so you don't care. Hello, it's the next day. I've just been editing all of my shit, and for some reason the very last part of the video just didn't record. Fear not, it's fine. I'm here to tell you about the last book in the series, Redeemed. I can't tell you how chuffed I was to get to Redeemed last night. I don't even want to try and recreate the joy for you. Just know that it was in fact a joyous occasion. Zoe puts herself into jail because she's killed those two guys, and all of a sudden she's grown a conscience. Maybe this would have shown some character development from the first time she killed two guys for no reason. Maybe she did start out the series being like portrayed as this selfish person who didn't care about stuff like that, and now further down the line, you know, she feels the weight of this responsibility, etc, etc. That might have been interesting. However, Zoe has never been treated as anything other than like the perfect example of a lovely, nice human being. This just does not have the same impact, and it just makes her look like a dick. All of it just makes her look like a dick, as usual. Anyway, Zoe turns herself into jail, and she's having a panic attack in the jail cell about how she's a bad person and stuff. I can only take 6 steps lengthways and 5 steps widthways, or whatever the phrase is. She's like, I'm in a cell the size of a coffin. And I'm like, that is the roomiest motherfucking coffin I've ever heard of in my life. I've never known of a coffin that you could walk 5 by 6 steps in. Maybe lengthways you could take a few. Widthways, they've only got to be as wide as your shoulders, bro. So I don't think you're in a jail cell the size of a coffin. I think that might be a little bit inhumane. So Zoe's done, is essentially what I'm trying to make a point here. Like, trying to isolate herself from grown-up vampires so that she'll reject the change and die, because she feels like that's what she deserves for taking the lives of those 2 men. All of her mates and her grandma and everyone show up to basically tell her that they forgive her and that they all blame the seer stone for making her act out like that. Does nobody remember when she did this before? So everybody forgives her anyway, and then it turns out that Neferet turned up at the park when Zoe had left, and even though Zoe had beat these guys senseless against a wall, it was actually Neferet who ended up taking their lives. So Zoe gets completely absolved of all blame here, and we kind of never bring it up again. Like, it's not like she learned a valuable lesson from thinking that she beat these guys up. She genuinely, like, is just like, oh, Neferet killed them. Guess that means I'm fine. Some kind of a altercation between the gang and Neferet kills Kelowna. I don't care. He goes back into the afterlife and has this big scene with Nyx, and I don't care. And Nyx forgives him for all of his wrongdoings, including, you know, R-wording all of those Cherokee women. And, you know, I do care a little bit about that bit. I've never given a shit about what happens to Kelowna. And I'm just so glad that even though this is the last book and, like, we only have a couple of chapters left, that he's done with, that we don't have to fucking deal with him again. Big final battle. I bet none of you could have guessed. You know, the one that we've been just talking about the entire last part of this book. We cast a fucking circle, and it's really fucking easy to trap Neferet in a cave. And then when they put the boulder in front of the cave, Aurochs, like, sacrifices himself so that he can use his immortal energy to, you know, bind Neferet into the cave. So Aurochs has this big fat sacrifice, and he's got to be the big hero at the end. And that's the end of the book. It's just a really anticlimactic fucking end. I can't believe they didn't come up with anything better than casting a fucking circle. Like, that was the solution for everything over the course of the series. And Neferet at this point has become, like, immortal, and she's allied with darkness, capital D. and you just cast a circle and trap her in a fucking cave. Are you serious? The end to this book was just really not worth the wait at all, but I am glad that it's over. There is a massive sense of relief here. My only other note for this book is that Eric and Shawnee get together at the end, and that's also completely random and stupid. It pissed me off because Eric starts acting like a total simp, and they act like this is him like atoning for the way that he's behaved in the past. And you know that I don't think he needs to atone, but also like being a simp and being like bossed around by your girlfriend and like being beneath her, that's not being like yourself, being true to your full potential, and that's not being a good boyfriend. So good job cast duo. I'm going. There's gonna be one more video after this where I talk about my final thoughts and some stuff that I missed over the course of the series that I feel like is important to mention, but then we're done after that, so thank fuck, eh?